Welcome to the Maturity Project. I am your host, Chad Everett Broshears. And something that's come to mind to talk about is the impression that people get because when there's a lot of people doing something, how disqualifying what you see because it has like abundance and not having the ability to extract the value of what's present. So in to make it more specific, so as I'm kind of perusing around in the social medias and just looking into things, it seems like even in my neighborhood alone, there's probably 5 or 6 podcasters. Not necessarily full time, just people that do it like myself. They're coming from someplace, they want to make a difference, and they want to offer something. Now, not all of them are offering something that's necessarily significantly valuable, but that may be not significantly valuable to you, excuse the tongue twister here, or to the witness that comes across it, but somebody somewhere out there will find value in it. There is value in everything. You just have to be able to distill it. Hell, even my niece has reached out and told me that she wants to start a podcast. And, what's interesting is, hell, how old is she now? She just turned 6. Yeah, she's a youngin', and she's starting her own, and inspired by me. And I love that I inspired her. And there's going to be people out there. Now, there are cautions when you have people that young doing it, just because they're putting something out into the internet and anyone can see it. But then again, this is the Maturity Project, right? It's also about her growth and development. When I grew up, your influence was within the realm of the people that you directly interacted with. Maybe people talked about you when you weren't around that left an influence on them, but it was really in a small radius. It didn't go very far. And also the connection and relationships that I had in interacting with people that were within that circle or within that radius, it gave me direct feedback that continued to help put me in a position that also humbled me. Or I would build everything from humbled to feeling, incredibly excited about my abilities, or possibly above and beyond what my capacity and abilities were. And that pendulum swinging there. There's a lot that's in the middle of that as well. There's things that you don't feel like you're necessarily and specifically special at doing, but you don't feel like you're necessarily behind your peers. There's going to be things that you do feel like you're a little bit behind your peers, and all of that has influence on your character build as you interact with people and you learn who you are as you navigate life with other people. Well, when you get into this realm, it seems to be a lot of excitation. So you get the further ends of the pendulum, if you will, or the spectrum that are giving you a belief about who and how you are. So if they give you the reward of acknowledgement and the like button, the rest of those things, which you haven't smashed it for this one, go ahead and smash it. Or the subscribers, those kind of things. You don't have the relationship with those people, but you're also in those formative years that are telling you more about who you are. My concern is that it may build into more of a shallow affect. May have more of a fragility to who everyone becomes, or these youth people become, these youngsters become as they grow into being adults. Sorry, I'm getting kind of tongue twisted tonight. So the challenge is when you have a shallow affect or a weak constitution or fragile perspective of yourself, the break that they experience can be much more significant than somebody who has gone through the immediate emotional and character build of having smaller micro rejections that are very easy to tolerate, but they build up towards supporting either side of that pendulum swing, where it's either you get high levels of acceptance and encouragement, or you get the the takeaways or the damaging side of the vacuousness of realizing you're not who you believed you are because somebody else gave you that recognition. You have a buildup that facilitates your constitution, your awareness to who you are. It facilitates a robust and healthy ego, not the fragile ego that breaks easily. And when it breaks, extreme concepts come into play, like self-annihilation or lashing out at people, or whatever the regressed emotional state lands at, wherever that is. A 4-year-old that has credit cards and a car and the access to weapons and things like that, is not in an adult body. That becomes a very threatening potential versus somebody who truly is their age. Somebody's 28 and their maturity level's at 28, and they go through a challenge in life that makes them question themselves or seeks out revenge because somebody's upset them. That may take a lot to upset them when they're really mature, because you understand that people do what they do in a way that isn't as provocative to you to the point where you react in a dangerous or unhinged way. But when you're less developed or less mature, your potential to lash out is much higher because you're just not mature. So you may have the 28-year-old body, but you may be responding like a 6-year-old. Well, there's some problems with that. My 6-year-old body upset, or the 6-year-old individual with my 45-year-old body, you may not want to deal with the consequences of that human being lashing out at you. But my 45-year-old self, 45 years of maturity and 45 body that does what I do in the gym and martial arts and things like that, you're going to feel calm and reassured that you're still safe around me. But if I were 6, or at least at that emotional level of a 6-year-old, and I get upset, you'd probably be concerned what would happen. I'm not saying I'm a badass or anything like that. Don't be afraid of me. I'm not. I've got a very cool affect. Keep even keel most of the time. But the point of it is that this is what can happen because you have an unrealistic build out that a lot of the youthful people are coming across, because they don't have people supporting them in the process. It's this fake reality, the I celebrity thing, where everybody wants to pretend they're somebody they're not, so that they get people to hit the like button and subscribe to them and give them that reassurance that what they're doing is what they want people to acknowledge. Whether it's true to them or not, it's still what they're wanting to do to get attention. So it's a concern for me because it's technology outpacing our ability to mature, and our previous generations aren't really able to keep up with this because technology has outpaced our ability to mature. And we're still dealing with the effects from the 80s that put both parents in the workforce. So you didn't have one at home, one in the workforce. Then it created credit card debt, everything got more expensive, and then you really had to have 2 people working. Took away parenting to the extent that it was in the previous generation. Previous generation's parenting guide handed off to that generation, which is not a physical guide, it's this is how I was raised and this is how I can guide you in raising my grandchildren. Previous generation to the generation of the children. It's, you don't understand everything else I'm going through. We both have to work. You don't get it. Those kind of things that cause a disruption in the raising process of children from adult to child or parent to child. So that happened in the 80s, and to the 90s, we had a continuation of that, keeping up with the Joneses, buying the higher end car, getting the nicer things because you need to do something to justify all the work that you're doing and to reward yourself. And before you know it, it caught up, and then it's a matter of trying to manage debt and living closer to paycheck again. And it just created this, well, now I can't put my attention on my family. I need to put my attention outside of it. Left the kids to be raised more by television or nannies or whomever. Predominantly at that time, it was more television. Into the 2000s, smartphones came out, midway through the first part of the 2010s, around 2005. Really, a lot of us started getting access to smartphones. And tablets, came out shortly thereafter. Before you know it, there's another distancing between parent and child, and kids aren't able to really develop much of a constitution for themselves, and their influences for their development is coming out of their devices, it's coming out of their social media. And then we enter into, now you as a youthful person can find a way of making money based off of working off of phones and tablets or whatever, interacting with social media. And then it created another challenge, which is, well, I know somebody who's 19 years old that's a multimillionaire because they did these things, and you make $100,000 a year. I don't really want to listen to you. I want to listen to the millionaire, that's closer to a peer of mine. So I'm going to put more focus here. And they didn't develop for workforce, things like that. I want to be a professional gamer. You see, like, this whole thing continued to create a distance between parent and child, and that is affecting the child's development because they're not facilitating the build out of their constitution. It's their personal foundation. So it's created more of a fragile ego or shallow affect. Now we're where we are now, and we have people that are encouraging their kids to try to strike it rich. The new gold rush is social media and digital businesses and all of that. And it's not necessarily a bad thing, but having your child do that when they probably would do better playing with other kids in the neighborhood and getting their hands and feet dirty, and dealing with physical challenges that help them understand their limits. They're now dealing with the emotional ranges of instant gratification through interactions with people, the like, stuff like that. And there's an entire economy that's built around it, not just the business economy. There's also a personal satisfaction economy that's been built around all of this social media interactions. So my goal is to create as much maturity around this so that, look, it's not going anywhere. We're not going to get rid of it. I'm not an advocate for creating legislation or some sort of government intervention to really control it either, as much as to put the power back into the parents and the individuals' hands so that they can be responsible enough to help direct and raise their children in a way that they're not damaged goods in the future, if you will, because of their not getting their robust and healthy ego developed. By the way, you won't hear me say, side note, but to give you more substance to it, is I mentioned the ego several times now. Most people understand the ego as being a negative thing, almost like a scapegoat approach. It's the I'm so sorry my ego got away from me, or you got your ego, or you're just this egoic person. There's more to it when it comes to the ego, especially the way the Maturity Project teaches it, because it expands on previous understandings as well as evolutionary psychology. So there's a lot more to it. I'll talk about that if you guys are interested. Put a comment in the comment section if you'd like to hear more about it. There is a very healthy and a desirable direction whenever it comes to the ego, and that's maturing the ego, which is the robust ego. So it's just to keep things like that in mind, expanding on what we know. But back to the main topic, which is, look, we've got a lot of people that are putting out content and creating content. I myself am one of them. A lot of us are doing it. Learn how to extract the intent and the good parts, or what you can take from it. When I say by the good parts, is really what's relative and relevant to you. It can be somebody else sees something else. And look, I'm not the best expert at this. I'm not the highest level expert at this. This is a practice to fail forward and fail up, get better every single time. That's where I'm at. But I've also, from my previous point, I also have spent a lot of time developing the robust side of my ego, the mature side of it, the coexisting and the desire to build something with other people is part of my ego. My constitution is well solidified. I'm not the fragile part of my, I don't have a fragile ego as much, at least not on the subjects that have been presented on here. I'm still looking for those because it tells me where my homework is. So that's the way it works. It shows up in the emotional scale and you're like, yep, got some work to do there. Let's get after it. So my point is that we need to understand what's going on, and better prepare ourselves to take action as soon as possible, so that we don't have a decade's worth of people that are further neglected in their maturity and growth and more dependent on some sort of authority to help support their life, because they were conditioned into failure to launch because they didn't have the challenges and the experiences necessary to build their constitution and their robust portion of their ego, the thriving side of the ego, the good part of it. They've been stuck on that pendulum swing of, I got a lot of likes today and people love me, and then there's, I feel vacant and nobody cares for me and I don't exist, I don't matter. It's a hell of a challenge to create human beings that see the world that way. They can become dangerous people, and dangerous to themselves, dangerous to others. And it doesn't necessarily need to be dangerous in the physical aspect. It could be chaos that becomes part of a relationship, or the relationship doesn't need to be the intimate either. It could be a friend, or somebody within the vicinity, acquaintance, things like that. They still have an impact on you. So just be aware of it. Look, it's not intended to be another babbling video. It is fail forward, fail up. This is something that's relevant, especially since I've seen, I can't tell you how many people are popping up on my friends' suggestions that have a microphone and a podcast set up and all of that on their profile. I'm not hating on them. There's nothing, it's just it's a growth in an industry. That's what it is. But when I see kids getting involved, it does bring a degree of concern, because for every moment they're thinking about that, how much of the other aspects of their growth and development that is ideal is being neglected. If you want to make it even kind of a ridiculous concept or a ridiculous comparison, but at least to highlight it through this, not literally, but it would be like giving a toddler a keyboard when they should be learning how to stand up and walk, and you're expecting them or encouraging them to learn how to type. Their motor recruitment is getting skipped over for the walking sequence, locomotion, things like that, and then muscular development, neurological conditioning, and they're going directly to dexterity and finite movement that is very fine-tuned compared to larger factors like locomotion. So skipping it, there's a lot of important social engagement and interactions that kids go through. If they're not properly socialized by the time they're 3 years old, increases the potential of them developing antisocial personality disorders, things like that. I'm not a therapist. I just have a very high degree of interest in a lot of things, and psychology is one of them. Psychological development, all of that. It's very impressive and interesting to me. But we're skipping factors about what is proper for the process of growth and development. So anyway, there's a lot to be said here. Just put your comments in the comment section. Want me to talk more about something in particular or specific, I'm happy to do it. So, all right, that's it. I am Chad Everett Brochures, the host of The Maturity Project. Share this video with the person in your life you want to make a meaningful conversation with. Keep in mind, when you go to make change, your support group, the people that are close to you, the ones that care about you, the ones you interact with, they know when you've had your best moments and they've seen some of your worst moments. And when you go through change, stress is guaranteed to come along. If you don't enroll them, they don't know what you're up to, and you're just doing this in secret or silence. You didn't enroll them. One of the problems that you can deal with is when you're going through the stress that's necessary to forge that new character value that you're developing yourself for change or through change, they're going to want to try to pull you back to where they knew you were happy and confident in whatever it is that you seem to be lacking while you're dealing with stress. It's the crabs in the bucket, but it's through empathy. It's not through jealousy. They're just trying to support you because they care about you, they love you, or whatever that relationship would be, emotionally defined by. If they don't know you're up to something, they're going to try to bring you back to that stable place where they know that you're at least more happy, more satisfied, more content. So share the video with them. You can help break through that by at least, if nothing else, when you're going through that stuff, they can say, how can I help you? How can I support you? But they're very unlikely to try to pull you back to where you were coming from. So they may give you words of encouragement. They may be able to lend you resources in the process of your growth. You never know. All right. Well, now that I got Jacob Marley on the wind coming along to crash my party, apparently it wants to get its time to make its own podcast too. So let me free this up so they can get to it as well. God, I'm ridiculous. Anyway, all right, that's it for today. Remember, the path to hell is paved with good intentions, but we are taking it there because we are going to mature the hell up. And look, yesterday's failures give opportunity for tomorrow's success. So let's get up to something. Let's get up to it together. Let's go.